He kōna I purangi tēnei nā te reo irirangi o Aotearoa.
No mai, whakaronga mai ki te Aotai whenua. Welcome to Country Life. Ko Sally Roundaho.
Great to have your company. I'm Justin Gregory, and today we find some hidden treasures in a repurposed wool shed.
Cosmo visits an organic veggie farm that's mushroomed under green-fingered growers.
And later we meet a top Simmental cattle breeder who has a rather surprising hobby which brings a new meaning to the saying, like a bull in a china shop.
But first, to a look at what's been making headlines on the Rural News Desk this week. Farmers struggling with drought conditions in many parts of the North Island and Upper South Island will be eligible for more financial support from the government. The Rural Assistance Payment will be available from next week until the end of October in 27 affected districts. The Minister for Rural Communities, Mark Patterson, says it'll be enough to help farmers with essential living costs.
We've had probably the driest summer in some areas for 40 or 50 years, and of course some places like Northland followed by torrential rain, so we've got some farmers out there doing it really tough at the moment. So this is a modest support payment that some of those farmers will become eligible for. For our contract milkers, particularly that rely on a milk check, often cows have been dried off 2 or 3 months early. They're going to be, 6-7 months without any income at all. So hopefully this can tide them over a little bit and provide for some basic living expenses to get them through.
Farmers in Northland, Waikato, Taranaki, Horizons and the top of the South Island can apply through their local Rural Support Trust. Meanwhile, bags of free stock feed are being offered to Taranaki farmers ahead of a potentially challenging winter. The region's Rapid Relief Team is holding an event in Hawera next Friday where donations of livestock food will be given to registered farmers.
The country's 2 wool sales last week are being described as grim, as about 20% of fleeces didn't go under the hammer. The North Island wool auction in Napier saw all styles of wool prices drop by up to 5%. Lamb fleeces were the only one to maintain their price. But at the South Island auction in Christchurch, lamb's wool sold for 6% less than usual. South Island auction manager Dave Burridge says global uncertainty has led to a shockwave throughout the wool trade.
One of the tougher auctions I've been involved with for some time. Certainly it was very tough to get any interest from the bench. It's reflective of just what's happened in that trading space with the level of uncertainty. Wool just didn't need this at this time, as many challenges that it has.
Dave Burridge says some wool growers have chosen to refuse a lower price for their bales and store them for a future auction. However, he believes it won't last and is looking forward to next month's auctions.
Meat plants are struggling to get enough lambs to feed hungry export markets. AgriHQ's senior analyst Mel Crode has more.
Those involved in the lamb export sales are basically continuing to report strong interest from overseas customers, hence why processors are keen to get the number of lambs in front of them to take advantage of that. We've seen little impact of tariffs on sales into the US. Basically, pricing has remained stable on French racks. We have seen a couple of small improvements out of China, although prices there still remain a long way off those peak levels that we saw through those COVID recovery years.
Farmers in the Tararua district are overjoyed the long-awaited highway linking Manawatu and Hawke's Bay is set to open shortly. The new road over the lower slopes of the Ruahine Range is potentially just weeks away after a more than 8-year wait to replace the slip-prone link through the Manawatu Gorge. Acting Tararua Federated Farmers President Sally Dryland says the highway will allow for much smoother movement of stock.
We're really looking forward to it because it'll be safe and efficient travel, certainly easier for stock movements. A lot of our stock is sold through the fielding style yards or processed through fielding or Levin or Wanganui. What it means for someone like me, I have filled stock over in Hawera and often it'll get bruised on those roads. So you hope that that'll be less on a nice straight road without so many corners.
It's estimated the new 11-kilometre route will shave up to 14 minutes off the travel time.
A purpose-built, solar-powered oyster hatchery in Nelson has reached a new milestone. The $5 million Kirikiri Tātangi hatchery was built to increase Moana New Zealand's oyster production capacity. Its solar-powered system, first used in 2021, has seen the iwi-owned seafood business reduce its carbon emissions by 23 tonnes of carbon dioxide, the equivalent of the work of nearly 1,000 mature trees in a year. Chief Executive Steve Tarrant says the hatchery is generating and using solar power instead of drawing from the grid.
When we built the facility, we wanted to build it as sustainably as we could, but also designing it for the future. And being purpose-built, it allowed us to think about what does Moana New Zealand's facilities look like well into the future. And obviously solar power was one of those options on the table, and it met the need of the facility. As you can well imagine, the facility has been built with growth in mind, and hence so has the power supply and usage. So the $72,000 investment on the solar itself, we saw as an investment for the future, and we're very pleased with the results from that.
It's harvest time for one of the country's largest and only certified organic growers of medicinal cannabis. Puro started in 2018 and has an outdoor crop and an indoor growing and research site in Marlborough. Executive Chairman Tim Aldridge says it's just wrapped up its 5th commercial harvest this year, producing 6 tonnes of exceptional quality bud, all for export this season. He says flowers were freeze-dried, then sent off in bulk to export markets in Australia, and for the first time to new markets in the United Kingdom and European markets like Germany. He says they're looking to double capacity over the next year.
And finally, agriculture and horticulture students can now learn more about the primary sector while playing the computer game Minecraft. Mātiki Minecraft is set at Totara Estate in Oamaru, the farm where the first shipment of frozen lamb originated in 1882. The game explores early farming practices as well as the more modern primary sector landscape and career opportunities. And that's the rural news.
This is Country Life on RNZ National 101 FM.
And now we're heading to mid-Canterbury, where Cosmo Kentish Barnes is in a paddock with Penny Platt and Isaac Green from Untamed Earth Organics.
So we're at one of the 5 different farms that we farm, and we're just north of Coes Ford, so on the north bank of the Selwyn River, and we're standing in our watermelon patch. So we're just coming on now, which is first week of April.
Yep.
So quite late, but they're really good. I mean, they worked out well, and we always like to put in a few things that are a bit of a gamble. So we'll always put in something like chilies or watermelons that you wouldn't normally grow in Canterbury, but we just put in a little corner of the paddock to keep people interested. It helps people come into our shop and have something exciting to buy. Yes.
Tell me about Untamed Earth. Who else is involved, and how long have you been going for?
So Isaac, myself and my brother Oliver run it together, so the 3 of us own the business, and then we work with about sort of 15 to 20 other people who work through our shop and our farmers market and on the farm as well. And we've been going since 2020, so we started up just after the 2020 lockdown. It actually started off with a lot of veggie boxes because a lot of people were looking for that when it was sort of in the lockdown restrictions. Yep. And then we've moved, as that kind of people were getting out and about, we sort of moved to more sailing through the farmers market, and then we opened our own shop on Colombo Street about 2 years ago.
That must have been a big move.
Yeah, it was we were a bit worried when we started. We weren't sure whether or not Christchurch sort of had it in it to support a fully organic vegetable shop, but you know, it's been great. It's actually one of the easiest things we've done. We just take veggies along there, they sit on the shelf, people come in and buy them, and it's right next door to an organic butchery as well, so I think that really helps.
Yes. Oh, that's great that it's working well. Yeah. And so how many hectares of land have you got in production at the moment?
So this farm is 24 hectares, and we're growing on half of it, and then the other half is in a regenerative pasture. So we've got grasses and clovers to build up the soil fertility. And then we have another property out in Hororata where we grow winter brassicas, so cabbages and cauliflowers and things. And then we've got another 2 farms nearby that we're also regenerating at the moment. So part of our process is we always have a portion, it's about a third of the farm is always in something that's for building the soil. That helps us maintain fertility, and so everything we grow is certified organic, which presents its challenges. You know, on the way over here we were talking about how we manage some of the grass scrub in the paddock, and there's things we can do, but it's not as simple as just going down to the PGG shop and getting a bottle of insecticide. Yeah.
I'll just pass it over to Isaac. Isaac, when I turned up, you were working away in a paddock. What were you doing?
I was sowing some mesclun, some of our salad greens. We still use a little Jang push seeder for these things. So I'm walking up and down the paddock 5 or 6 times in each bed. Because we grow so many different types of vegetables, it's hard to buy the perfect piece of machinery for each and every variety of crop we grow. So sometimes that means walking up and down the paddock.
What made you want to become an organic market gardener?
Well, I was a chef a number of years ago, working my way around the country and outside the country, and the hours kind of weren't right for me, and thinking about starting a new family and things like that. So I came back to New Zealand and decided I'd have a go at horticulture. My parents have been in the farming industry since I was a child, so I've sort of grown up around it. They were into the beef and the dairy side. And so horticulture was a left step, I guess. And organics was something I was interested in. We're not just going out and doing the mainstream things that farmers do. We're working our way and we're trying to find different ways to do things. And that was the most interesting part of organics for me.
And Penny, how many crops do you grow here in total?
At least 40, pushing 50. We grow almost everything. The things we don't grow are, fruit. And then a few things like kumara, which we just haven't quite got round to figuring out how to grow down here in Canterbury yet. But pretty much everything else, yeah. And we try and have it all year round.
How do you deal with the seasonality of growing vegetables?
Yeah, so that's something we actually put a lot of effort into, is having as much as we can all year round. But it is a struggle because we just sell what we grow on the farm for the most part. You won't come into the shop and find tomatoes in July or cucumbers in the middle of winter. And I think that is one of the struggles, is we're competing against supermarkets who always have everything in stock. And so I think there's been a lot of work educating our customers about, what's in season now, what's really good. But we also put a lot of effort into having things that are a bit outside the scope of what you'd normally find in Canterbury in August, for instance. Yeah.
Yep. What are you harvesting at the moment?
We're harvesting all of the brassicas, so cabbages and collies. We've got a whole range of different potatoes. Strawberries are still cranking. We're picking some watermelons. We've still got sweet corn. We've got a whole lot of pumpkins to pick. I think we're probably picking something like 100 tonnes of pumpkins in the next couple of weeks.
Gosh.
Yeah, which all need to be picked up by hand, so that's going to be a big job.
A few sore backs.
Yeah. When we used to harvest them, we'd rugby pass them along a chain into the bin. That was always quite fun.
Do you tinker with engineering and try and find easier ways of harvesting vegetables?
Yeah, definitely. And Ollie, who's not here today, he's actually really good at that. He's got a really good mind for how to create something really simple that makes life a lot easier. And we've also spent a little bit of money on some things like a mechanised potato harvester that we can pick in a couple of hours, what would normally take us a couple of days. So.
And Penny, did you always want to be a farmer?
No, I thought I was going to be an author, actually. I went to university and studied literature and
Are you still writing?
I write a bit, yeah. I write when I'm on holiday. I need a couple of weeks away to get into the headspace. Mostly I just write harvest lists and seed diaries now.
You could turn them into poems.
Yeah. Quite repetitive. But I started at the BHU Organic College in Lincoln, and I started doing the Stepping Stone program there, which is you can sort of rent a plot of land when you graduate from the college and use that to start your own market garden. That was great. I'm really grateful for that opportunity. And it kind of skyrocketed from there.
Isaac, I guess being Thursday, you are getting ready for the weekend markets?
Yeah, we are. So we'll do the last of our harvest this afternoon. Some of those really delicate items get harvested last. The crew are all back in the pack shed, getting all the bags of salads and the potatoes all bagged up, and that gets split up into the 3 different markets we go to, and that all gets shipped out over the next few days.
So what farmers markets do you sell at?
We've got 3 farmers markets: Hawke, which is on our Friday afternoon out there at the Domain, Littleton Market, which is on Saturday on the main street, and South Christchurch Market, which is round behind the South Christchurch Library on Sundays.
Who does the markets?
There's probably 7 or 8, but are on rotation a bit. We have a couple of market managers, and we have 8 full-time staff members, and the rest is sort of part-time.
Gosh, it's quite a responsibility.
Oh yeah, it is. But I think we feel quite privileged to have so many staff as well, and to be able to provide work for that many people, because it was only 2 years ago that was the 3 of us.
Yeah. So we started off growing on 6.5 hectares and now about 10 times the land area from where we started 5 years ago.
Do you want to continue to expand?
I don't think so. I don't think we want to expand beyond what we're doing. I think we've got plenty to do already. It feels like we're able to grow the range of things we want, and that's often the struggle when you've got less land, is you have to prioritise. Do you make the thing that makes lots of money, or do you grow the thing that's exciting and fun? Yeah.
What is the biggest challenge you face in terms of having an organic market garden?
I think the hardest bit for me is the long-term management of things. And I think this is the same for all vegetable farming. I don't think it's an organically specific issue, but they're keeping the soil healthy for a long time. So looking 10 or 15 years ahead, will our soil be compacted and full of weeds, or will it still be healthy? And that's the real challenge, is that long-term soil management. And of course, making enough money, but I think that's the same with anyone in a small business at the moment, yeah.
Is Untamed Earth making a reasonable profit at the moment?
It's always a struggle, I think, being a small business, especially in organics, but it's a privilege being able to come out on the farm and do what we do each day. And while we might not make a whole lot of money from it, you can see by the weather today, it's nothing better than being outside.
Yeah. So all in all, things are trucking along okay?
Yeah, things are tracking along okay, and we've had a really good year this year. We've had, our crops are probably the best they've ever been. I've been farming for 15 years, and I think this is the best year we've had. And I think it's just we're getting better at what we do. The weather hasn't been particularly on our side this year, but we're still doing really well.
Benny Platt there from Untamed Earth Organics. Cosmo was also chatting with Isaac Green at their farm near Lincoln.
Many farms are increasingly looking to diversify to help offset the lack of market predictability. In the case of fifth-generation sheep and beef farmers Blair and Anna Robinson, that's meant adding a range of outdoor activities for visitors to their farm beneath the Tararua Ranges in Horowhenua. On a drizzly day, our producer Janina Schwanecker took shelter in the revamped woolshed, where the couple told her about their history with the family farm. Let's step inside. Don't mind the rain on the tin roof.
It's beautiful in here. The woolshed was the original building on the property when my great-great-grandfather purchased it. So that was about 1906, and at the time it was the only woolshed within the local area, so lots of local farmers would drive their sheep up here to be shorn. In the 1980s it was converted for horse treks. My auntie used to run horse treks on the farm. Then once she moved off farm it was just used to store junk for 30 odd years, and then in 2019 decided to do something with it and spent the winter renovating it, and we've reused as much as we can off farm. Advantage of being on a family farm, multi-generational, is there's always goodies in the storeroom. So the corrugated iron on the walls was actually off the original roof, and it was stored once it was re-roofed, so we've reused that.
The woolshed serves as a function space, as part of the Heights experience, which they run here on Anna's family farm. Just one of many hats the busy couple wear.
I am fifth generation on the farm. My I don't know how many greats, does that matter? Family moved to the farm in 1906, and so we're the fifth generation and our children are the sixth. The farm is currently run by my husband Blair and my brother Will.
Yeah, I'm Blair Robinson. I've been a stock agent for 23 years with, at the moment, independent with Stephen Harris Livestock. We live here on Tirihinga, run Tirihinga, but also lease my father's farm in Martin, which is a finishing farm up there. So, yeah, there's a fair bit going on, yeah. The Tirihinga farm's 998 hectares, or about 2,200 acres. It's breeding finishing, so it is now. So it's sheep and beef. We have 350 beef cows. 100 of them are share farm with another local farm, which is Lakeview, so they're all Herefords. We're all Angus, we're Angus Pure Tag, and the combination of the two is quite good because if the mobs get boxed up, they're red and ours are black. We also used to be a Perrindale stud, with the stud ewes only 15 months ago was sold to another stud in Te Anau. The stud was not sold because of us not wanting to do it particularly, it's just that we run out of man hours to actually, the time and effort that goes into it, and with finishing on our lambs now. So we are heading more towards a Romdale, but really need the Perrindale influence for moving around the hills. So We also have 70 velveting stags, so yeah, really sheep and beef and velvet. The bottom farm is flat, which is only 250 acres down where we are now at the woolshed. We then go up to 350 metres above sea level, which is starting to back into the ranges. We're right against the ranges, so we do get a lot of cloud cover.
Rain like today, fairly common.
This is a normal day, yeah. None of us have a suntan because it's always cloudy. And then up the top, there is actually a basin up the top there at 350 that is got another woolshed, but no power. It's just a covered yard really, and cattle yards. Then we go up to about 430 metres above sea level and then drop down into another basin that heads back towards the Ohau River. So between where we are now at the woolshed and the back corner of the farm is about 45 minutes on a buggy four-wheeler to get back to the inn.
They've diversified operations on farm. The Heights experience offering includes claybird shooting, axe throwing and archery.
So we knew that we had a beautiful location, and I kind of knew that I wanted to do something work-wise that enabled me to have the flexibility to help on farm, as well as I do all the admin for the farm, but also do physical farm work when required, step in like all good farmers' wives do. Also, we have 2 children, so I wanted something that gave me the flexibility to work around their schooling and sporting commitments. And we sort of threw back forward a few ideas, looked at the glamping thing, thought about setting up a farm walk, and then thought, well, let's do something really different and something that we enjoy. And Blair has always been a keen duck shooter, so we came up with the idea of the claybird shooting. We already had our original old woolshed on farm that had been renovated in the 80s, so we had the space that we knew we could use as a function centre. And then we thought, we can't just claybird shoot, so we threw in the archery and the axe throwing, and then opened in 2019.
The old woolshed is now filled with other treasures from the family's history on the property. An old newspaper referencing the farm's diverse offerings. A nice nod to Blair and Anna's own efforts today.
We unearthed in the attic of our house this photo, and it's all about farmer and butcher cooperation and paddock to plate, and so that is back in 1963, I think that says, and that's my great-grandfather, and then, a couple generations we're doing exactly the same thing, so yeah, it's obviously in the blood.
Yeah, nice little bookend of kind of how history comes around again.
And I'm really thankful that my grandfather actually got to come and see what we'd done with the shed before he passed away. So he passed away in 2020, and so we'd done all that in 2019, and he didn't say too much. I'm not really sure what he thought. Probably thought these crazy kids, what are they up to? But yeah, I'm pleased that he got to see what we were doing with the space that, had been such a big part of his life.
Being on the land itself, it involves long hours. It's a job that never really stops for most farmers, and running another business, working as a stock agent, getting around 2 properties. How do you do all the juggling?
Sometimes I question that myself. I feel like we spend a lot of our lives in vehicles travelling between farms and running from one state to the other. I guess, I don't know, we just...
Well, pretty much I'd go farming every day and I get called in, like, you have to take this on Thursday or Friday or whatever. It does tie up a lot of weekends, the Heights experience, but then it also does give you the interaction with the public, and you can actually, probably allows us to be prouder of the farm when farming stuff, because people ask about it and you go, oh yeah, it's actually quite cool.
We have restricted the Heights experience groups to mostly Fridays and Saturdays. We do the odd midweek corporate team building. We close on Sundays because we need some family time. We have a daughter at boarding school who only comes home on the weekends, so actually, to be fair, now that she's getting older, she doesn't really want to hang out with us when she comes home. But to start with, her weekends she wanted to see mum and dad, and she'd be upset if we were working all weekend. And we also close through the winter because both kids play a lot of winter sport, and so as any sporting parent knows, you spend a lot of time in the car driving to practices and matches. So
yeah, no. I've ridden motocross for about 30 odd years, and our son seems to quite enjoy it too, so there goes Sunday. You're kind of off doing that, but my view on the motocross is he's got years of being able to ride it. I don't push him, but I still ride a bit myself, but it does get you around the countryside too, and you probably get away from the farm because of that, and that's a good thing.
The farm's diverse operations help provide some stability in a challenging market environment, and speak to how the industry has changed in recent generations.
This place used to have a lot of staff. We're really We'd love to have more staff, obviously. It would be quite nice just to be managing the people rather than actually being out there doing the digger work and all that on top of fencing and things as well. To have a business off the side that actually is, to be fair, it pays for the extras that we can do with our family because, there's pretty lean times with the farm. Don't get me wrong, I'm positive about where we're heading with farming. We can't control the weather. That's probably the thing that hinders the industry the most. No one's got grass, the land price crashes. When everyone's got grass, the works are like, oh, we're going to have to pay out. It's pretty simple logistics. It's just supply and demand. There's not everyone and not every farm can have the opportunity to kind of create the space that we have for Heights experience alongside. Obviously, we do Heights Farms meat as well, which is in Woodies and out of Levin, and they're all finished in around 2 farms in Martin. And the reason for doing Heights Farms meat was actually not about we don't make a lot of money out of it. It's really just meets the kind of industry price, but we wanted people to be able to eat better meat. Now, that was really the focus with it, was so that when you go into your butcher, it tastes good every time, because no point in us producing it if people don't actually get to taste really good meat.
What about for you, getting to see people connect, come into your old family wool shed and see the space?
Yeah, it's really special. And I think when you live somewhere, you can just take stuff for granted. So with people coming through Heights Experience, you get to see the farm through their eyes, and that sort of makes you appreciate and realise, one, how lucky we are. There's not many generational family farms left around, but also the environment that we live in is beautiful. And sometimes when you live and work in it, all you see are the things that need fixing, the fences that are broken and bits and pieces that you haven't got to yet, and yet the public come in and see it and they're just blown away, and it makes you go, oh yeah, actually this is pretty cool. We're really lucky.
The couple are passionate about the industry and confident of the next generation entering the primary sector, including their own children.
When we first moved down, Blair and I, we're very conscious that we're the guardians of this land for the next generation, and so we have been working with Horizons Regional Council over the years to plant up our waterways. But when we started the claybird shooting, it was really important to us that we be as sustainable as possible. So all our bullets are actually fibre wad, so that breaks down in the rain.
Not lead or anything like that?
Well, we do have lead shot, because that can be...
counteract with lime.
Yes, counteract with lime,
okay,
which breaks it down. And then obviously clay's biodegradable because they're made of clay. Although we do send our children out to collect the unbroken ones.
Smart.
Yeah, that's a good little. They tried to charge us $1 a clay, but that got a bit expensive.
Got out of control.
Yeah. So we've planted most of our waterways down the bottom with grants through the regional council, and then we recently set aside 70 acres of land which we've put into the carbon credits, but have planted with Douglas fir and not pines.
Douglas fir is a 100-year tree, and we kind of went down the road that we wanted to put something in that is doing it for the long term. We wouldn't be if it wasn't the opportunity that Anna's parents give us and my father's given us to be farming. Sometimes you wonder if it's an opportunity or a hindrance, but yeah, I think it's pretty hard for the generations to know how to probably move through and on. There's no real great formula of which we were all working out either, but there is ways to, and we'd like to see more young people in farming, and I think that's the key, is getting more young people wanting to farm.
Blair and Anna Robinson speaking to Janina Schwaneke in their wool shed at Heights Farms below the Tararua Ranges just near Shannon. You'll find photos of the wool shed and its hidden treasures, as well as more detail about the farm on our webpage, rnz.co.nz/countrylife.
My name is Woodsy. I'm the maker of Woodsy Rockers. I'm from Taranaki. You are listening to Country Life on RNZ National.
Where we are heading to Central Hawke's Bay now to meet Tony Thompson, one of New Zealand's most influential breeders of Simmental cattle. He also has a new and surprising passion. Maggie Tweedy takes up the story.
It's a warm autumn day in Central Hawke's Bay, and I'm heading to Farm Road in Waipukaro to meet one of the country's oldest and most energetic stud breeders, Tony Thompson. Upon my arrival, I learnt about Tony's story as a young backcountry farmer in Whanganui, where he decided to train as a vet and become the first person to graduate from Massey University Veterinary School. Tony paid his way through university, sharing, and earned several scholarships, including one to Cambridge in England, where he studied embryology and became an embryo transplant specialist. On a trip in the late 1960s, he and his wife Glenys visited the Sim Valley in Switzerland, which is where their story begins. They were drawn to creamy white faces and brownish reddish coats of muscly Simmental cattle. It was this adventure that inspired Tony and Glenys to merge their names and register the Simmental herd as Glen Anthony.
And it's amazing, isn't it? We went to a cattle sale, actually, in a town in the Sim Valley, in the region called the Emmental, hence the name, I guess, Simmental.
Kind of like Glen Anthony, the combination of the two names, right?
Well, it was really been lovely, yeah, that's right. And that's been super, really. It was so sad when we went back into many, many years later to find that the Simmental breed has been crossed so vastly with Holstein, Friesian breed and bloods of dairy cattle. And now in Switzerland, there's the crossbreed is basically a dairy breed and nothing to do with beef cattle at all. It's in Germany where the beef side of the Simmental breed has really been promoted and pushed.
Is that trend also happening in Aotearoa, New Zealand, though, with dairy cattle?
Well, there are Simmentals now used in the dairy production for those dairy beef bulls, and people are using the Simmental breed. Just recently outplayed by the Charolais, sadly, but that's what I've now produced the bull which has had over the last few years one of the best easy calving records in the Simmental breed, and so I collected a lot of semen to sell into the dairy breed, into the dairy business, but I'm finding it a bit hard to push it. You've really got to have a good marketing situation, and running a farm and doing those sorts of things, you're not quite in the right position.
You've got this real breadth of experience. First of all, starting off at vet services and working as a veterinary surgeon, but then also, moving into becoming an expert show judge and then having extraordinary success showing your own cattle. And has that helped shape your eye, but also shape your stud?
I think it definitely has, and my interest in artificial breeding is a big factor in that. And it wasn't until we moved down here to Waipuka around 1974 that I again was able, lots of beef cattle down here and studs. And so there was an interest in embryo transplant starting to occur in the early 80s. And so I went to a course in Australia in 1983, run by Dr. Peter Elsden, and that was marvellous, and that set me off on the non-surgical method of flushing a donor cow and implanting the embryos into recipient cows. So my career in that started then, and I've had several very, very interesting jobs with that in my professional career. One of them was working with Hilton Gutzel to produce a Charolais stud from 11 heifers that he bought, and over a period of 3 years we were able to produce a herd of 60 females. And then, of course, I had a long association with brown rig agriculture and with propagating the Wagyu breed here in Hawke's Bay.
Should we go and check out these heifers?
Yeah, let's go and have a look. Or we could have a look around. Bit of equipment for me.
We climb into the ute and drive down the laneway, passing the old stable that once housed Tony's polo ponies he rode for 15 years at the Wanstead Polo Club. Just ahead of us is a group of cows and heifer calves that are carefully kept for competition. Tony's passion for the Simmental breed is evident in his commitment to showing them at AMP events across the country.
So these are lovely big show cows that we've had in the past.
They're so friendly, they're coming right up to us.
Yeah, they're lovely. Calves perhaps not quite so used to us, but look at that lovely big heifer calf, she's beautiful.
And so glossy. What kind of season have you had here? It looks like you've got plenty of feed.
We have had the most amazing season you could think of, and we looked like heading to a drought in December, and so we were starting to feed out baleage. Then we had 90 mils of rain between the 20th of December and the 20th of January, and the growth just was amazing. This is Chorus. She's a lovely old cow, and she was born in 2014, so she's 11 years old, and really keeping herself together beautifully.
Gosh, she looks immaculate. Have you given her a scrub before I came over?
No.
I feel like she's had a polish.
But you only need to put a halter on her and she'd be fine. But just amazing. But yeah, talking to the season, and since then we've had on and off rain all the way through, and look at the feed. We just can't believe it. Come on! You're coming to talk to us. Yeah. There you are. Good morning. So these are our heifers coming up to have their first calf. Looking extremely well. Almost too well. We'll make them work a bit over the winter so they just take a little bit of that fat off, I think. While they're looking lovely at the moment, I think that we want to make it easy for them to have a calf, and too much fat around the birth canal and things ain't the best.
Easy carving's a passion of yours, isn't it?
Absolutely. Easy carving's a passion, and I've gone against the modern trend in that at age 80 I can't feel bothered trying to go out in the middle of the night to check 2-year-old heifers having their first calf. So I've opted for the easy option, and I'm not calving until 3-year-old. This is a breed that is a late maturing breed. They're not as early maturing as Angus. They're not sexually early maturing as Angus. Honestly, way back, a clerk was sitting at his desk in the Department of Agriculture building and suddenly thought, farmers could make more money out of mating yearling heifers instead of waiting for them to be 2-year-old. And it was a decision made at a desk for a financial reason. And, I sort of feel as a stockman, you've got to think of the animal, you've got to think of the cattle beast. And as a veterinary surgeon, I was often the ambulance at the bottom of the cliff. If the farmer hadn't got it right, if he hadn't got his heifers to the right size, or hadn't used the right bull, there was calving trouble. And I was out there doing caesareans or attending to heifers that were damaged during the calving process because the calf was too big. And I just felt that's sad, really. You're limited to what bulls you can use, and while I know there are a lot of stud breeders out there that have got it down to a fine art and do it very well, I'm afraid I've taken the lazy option, and I'm mating my 2-year-olds, and look at them, they're lovely cattle.
Should we go down this way, or we'll get back in the truck?
Get back in the truck and we'll drive around the top.
We walk to a nearby bull paddock. Normally, Tony's sow is held on farm in mid-June, making it one of the last stud bull sales on the east coast. But this year, after a stud breeder sold his herd, a new spot opened up and he decided to move it a month earlier, to May 16, to avoid being the last pick of the bunch. Tony's farm is 230 acres. Previously, they had 500 acres at their farm in Onga Onga, but after selling that property, he and his late wife Glenys reduced their herd from 150 cows to 70. They're now able to sell 20 bulls, and Glen Anthony now focuses on consciously choosing to use pole bulls.
So here are the sow bulls, all looking very comfortable, very relaxed.
Oh my gosh. They're chewing their cuds.
Chewing their cuds.
What was the decision to start polling your cattle and take the horns off? How long did that actually end up taking you? Has it been more than a decade?
We went in 2012, we went for a tour through Germany, looked at the bulls there, and they were traditionally horned cattle. And we couldn't believe it, that the whole stud book of Simmental cattle in Germany were polled. And they told us it took them 15 years. So 2012, we've been going 13, so we're getting close.
And so naturally the ones that are polled are probably more popular?
That's what's happening now. Yeah, there are some commercial buyers that don't mind, but the stud people, everybody's going polled now, so it's become the thing to do.
You can fetch a higher price for the polled?
I think so, on a stud basis, but our top price last year was a horn bull, and as the Hereford breeders will tell you, and those people that are into buying Herefords, they'll tell you that bigger cattle, bone-wise and things, are the horned cattle.
They all seem so docile sitting there together, no one's fighting.
No, they're very, very good. The temperament of these cattle is excellent.
Nearby, Tony's covered cattle yard has been turned into a grandstand with hay bales for people to sit on during the auction. He's not only a successful breeder, show judge and competitor, but also a mentor to many young people starting out in agriculture. He said it all started with him taking too many cattle to each A&P show.
Now, if you're going to show 20 cattle at a show, you need people, you need help. And Amy Hugenblum was the first girl to come out from school here in Waipak.
Who is now a vet?
Who's now a vet, and I nurtured her through all that, and it was such a thrill to see her become a veterinary surgeon. It really was really good. So she started it off really, and then I had these other young people, and of course Max came along, and Rowan Stanford, and a few other people, and then they made my staff for showing all these cattle. And that's how it started. And then it was very easy then, because Future Beef was the competition, and the group of people that set up Future Beef to try and promote the appreciation of beef cattle, the judging of beef cattle and the showing of beef cattle in young people. In a way, it was a school for young people to bring some cattle from farms, bring them along, and then be shown a little bit about grooming, to compete in the show ring, so they got experience of showing, go through several courses of questioning and little short competitions to really teach them all about beef production and management and all those sorts of things. And I fully supported it, and because it's held in Fielding each year, they required cattle for the young people to judge. They needed some heifers and some young cattle to judge. So I used to take some cattle down from the Glen stud. And then, of course, it was made easy because following on from Future Beef, they had the National Bull Sales and Beef Expo, they called it. And that was a great thing to be involved with the young people. And as well as that, I could take some bulls for the sale. I helped a lot. Sometimes there weren't enough leaders to lead my young heifers in the ring, and so I'd get out and do it myself. And I remember Bruce Orr one day, who was commentating on the event, and he said, "Now here comes the oldest calf leader you'll ever see, Mr. Thompson in his 60s. But yeah, I was showing the young kids that, hey, look, this can be done.
Yeah.
Oh, we started off some amazing little young people that had never, ever seen cattle before, unlike these people were from the city. And to see them out there leading the calves and leading things was amazing.
So many of the young people that you mentored have ended up in the agricultural industry, and I don't think that's a mistake.
No, it's been great, hasn't it?
At age 80, Tony is one of the country's oldest stud breeders, but you wouldn't know it from his energy. In 2024, he celebrated a major milestone, 50 years of Glen stud. But he doesn't do it all on his own. As we head back towards the house, we spot Grant Latimer, who's been living on the farm with his partner Marianne and working alongside Tony since 2020. A former client and owner of his own stud, Grant brings experience to the team.
And he went to the Easter show one Easter, and we had all our cattle there showing them. And so he saw this, he thought, gee, I'd like those cattle. And so he came down to the stud and had a look, and he ended up buying some heifers and cows and bought a bull from us and started up a Simmondale stud on Cornwall Park.
Isn't that fascinating? And now how many years on he's working for you?
That's right.
If you had to cherry pick some of your favourite animals from your herd, what are some of those milestones? What are some of those animals that stand out?
In 2003, we imported a bull from Australia. He was an amazing bull. We brought this bull in home. I went and looked at him in Australia and decided, yep, we could have him, and brought him out. And we went around the shows. He'd already run the Champion of Champions at the Easter Royal Show as a yearling, and we took him out as a 2- and 3-year-old to the shows around here, and he won the Meat and Wool Cup, which, as you know, is the champion of all the beef breeds at the shows. And we won that at the Royal Show in Hastings, Waikato and Christchurch and Auckland.
Extraordinary.
He was just amazing. He was named Yardstick, Monreed Yardstick.
So he's right at the bottom of the alphabet.
Yeah. You know, the old Irish chap in Australia was really amazing because we'd been on a herd tour with the Simmondale Society in 2002. Or perhaps it was 2003. That's when he was born. And we saw this calf on his mother and really liked it. When we got home, looked at our photographs, you know, you look at over your photographs of the tour. I said, I must give this guy a ring to see if there's any chance of perhaps getting some semen or even buying the bull. We just loved the car. And so we got hold of Mr. Murphy, had a chat to him. He said no. He said he had a lot of time for this calf. He thought he was going to make a big difference to their own herd, but he would be interested when he was old enough to perhaps send us some semen. Well, in March 2004, at the end of Easter weekend, we get a phone call from Australia, and it's Mr. Murphy. And he says, look, Mr. Thompson, he says, this bull has just won the Supreme Champion at the Sydney Royal Show, and we've got the phone is going crazy with people wanting to buy him. And I remembered that you from New Zealand was the first person to ask if you could buy them. Isn't that amazing? Isn't that just so marvellous? And so I got a mate of mine, my wife doesn't like flying, so my mate of mine, John Jackson, we hopped on an aeroplane and flew to Sydney and then got a rental car and drove all the way up to Nundle, which is in the middle of New South Wales, and checked out the bull, decided we liked them, and so we bought them.
It must have felt like Christmas.
It was amazing.
It's time for a cup of tea with Tony's partner Laurel, who has just whipped up a fresh batch of fluffy cheese puffs and buttery shortbread from the oven. We gather around the kitchen table as she pours the brew into delicate china teacups. The two chat about their late spouses fondly and seem glad to have found comfort in each other's company through grief. Laurel isn't too keen on stepping up to the microphone. She prefers to stay out of the spotlight. But Tony, he's been sitting on a surprise. Turns out he's a real bull in a china shop, or rather a museum inside his house, brimming with pristine Irish china he and Glen lovingly collected over the years.
We are now in the China Museum. This is Bleak china from County Fermanagh in Northern Ireland, and this dates back to the 1860s, so it's 100 to 150 years old. A job that I took on in 2013. I just started to enjoy importing this from overseas and collecting it. And it's a special, really special china that is still being made today. And you can see a picture of the pottery there at the top. And that's in a little town called Bleak, right over on the west coast of Northern Ireland. And we've visited there twice now and gone to the pottery and had a look. So as we walk through the museum, you'll see that there's lots of things here. These are the typical Bleak with the shamrock colouring on it. And these are two dolls also made by the factory. And then we go right round and you can see all different tea sets, colours. We've got the green sets here, we've got the tulip sets there, we've got the animals, we've got these amazing baskets, and it's just so incredible to think that that's all China, and that these baskets could be made out of China.
I've never seen a basket of china.
No.
That's a first.
And these beautiful colours behind us here, these are the Art Deco colours. These are just amazing. This is called the Neptune pattern with the little shells on the bottom, you can see.
The shells are kind of like feet.
That's right. They're the feet for the cups, and also for the little jugs, the feet on there. And that's a Neptune pattern. This is a Tridacna pattern. All different patterns. We have beautiful gilding around the edges, 9-carat gold. And here we have the platinum around the edges, which is really, really beautiful. It's been here you are, I've been over 10 years now collecting.
Only 10 years, Tony. This is quite a collection.
That's right. This would probably be one of the best collections of coloured black mark bleak in the world. This is very, very, very thin. If you put it in your hand, it's just absolutely thin.
I can't believe you're entrusting me to hold it.
Not at all. You can hold it up to the light and see through it. You can see my hand on the other side. And to think that it was made in the 1880s, 1890s, was shipped to America, lived in America for all these hundreds of years, and then shipped here to New Zealand, and it's still in perfect condition. Just incredible.
Exquisite.
Just takes your breath away, really.
40 display cabinets.
40 display cabinets. Yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
My family aren't interested, the younger people aren't interested in this sort of collection, which is a bit sad, but that's true. No, I'm happy to accept that. It seems such a pity to be sitting here in a farmhouse in Waipukurau. It's something special, and we should really be sharing it with other people. And I'm so lucky that this lady here loves it to bits.
I do. I really enjoy the Bleak. It's lovely.
So it's just so lovely we have an interest together. And
so beautiful.
This is really incredible.
Tony Thompson talking to Maggie Tweedy at his farm in central Hawke's Bay. You can see video of his china collection on our webpage, rnz.co.nz/country life.
Well, that's it for Country Life this week. It's great to hear from you. You can contact us at country@rnz.co.nz, and you can follow and listen to Country Life wherever you get your podcasts.
You can read more, find photos and listen again to the stories you've heard by checking out the episode notes or heading to rnz.co.nz/country life. The stories today were produced and presented by Cosmo Kentish-Barnes, Janina Schwaneke and Maggie Tweedy.
In the studio production team today, David Knowles and Phil Bench. From me, Sally Round, ka kite anō.
Catch you next time.